Inspiration, brave action, and heartwarming journeys. This is what the Louise H. Reed Show brings you. Now, here's your host, Louise H. Reed.
Hello, everybody. Those listening on the internet radio waves, as well as those watching live on Facebook. I am your host for the next hour, Louise H. Reed with Contact Talk Radio. I would like to welcome you from wherever you're listening around the world. We do have listeners in over 145 countries. And the station, including my show, we've got millions of downloads each month. And I just want to welcome and thank all of you for being such loyal listeners. Today, as I do each and every week at this time, we're exploring the journey and story of my guest. My guest today, Amanda Goff, like all my other guests, are amazing examples of people who are taking brave, bold action in pursuit of their own dreams and goals and doing good in the world while doing this. So before we get into our coffee chat with Amanda Goff, I'd like just to share a few words about Amanda so you have a little bit of context. So Amanda is based in Vancouver, Washington in the US. Amanda Goff is best known for her ability to help businesses unlock their brand story and breathe life into it visually through images and video. For Amanda, helping her clients embrace their role in their brand story is the most rewarding part of what she does. When she isn't busy as owner and creative director of Silver Keys Media, you can find her spending time with her husband, Rob, outdoors at her local community theater and exploring quirky small towns on a Sunday drive. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm really glad you are. I'm excited to have you on the show as well for a whole bunch of reasons. So let's maybe get started with the first thing that intrigues me most is actually the name of your business, Silver Keys Media. I think I saw some neat story behind how this name came to be. So how about we start there and you can share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I decided I was going to start my own company, I really wasn't, there's a lot of things that floated through my head, but what I kept coming back to was the fact that I really love helping people embrace their story. And it brought me back to a childhood memory when I was little. My grandmother, my mom's mother, in her parlor, she had these framed shadow boxes that had all of these old skeleton keys. And I was always fascinated. I would spend time in just looking at those and looking at all of the other little tchotchkes and things she had on the wall. But those keys, I always wanted to, break the frame and grab the key. And I always would just make up stories in my head of like where they went to, what they unlocked. And, my, of course, dream was I would find some attic with some trunk and amazing treasures that those keys might unlock. So I kind of went to that as a name for my company. And so that's just definitely flowed into, the kind of my tagline of helping people unlock their story. We all have stories inside of us, and often it's fear, or it's sometimes just thinking it's not worthy of being shared.
There's so much there, so much truth there, right there in the comment about fears and just not knowing that your story is worth sharing.
Yeah. So that's really my passion, is helping business owners and entrepreneurs. They just get rid of that myth that they aren't worthy of being a really integral part of their brand and their story, and that they can step into that and share that story because people want to hear.
People do want to hear. And so maybe you can tell us a little story about, although I really enjoyed that one. I love grandma stories.
Yes.
I grew up in Canada. I'm originally from England. And so my grandma used to come and visit from England every year, and I would just hang on to every word that she said. So I love anyone says the word grandma or nana, whatever they call them, and I'm immediately hooked and I want to hear the rest of the story. So thank you for sharing that one. So you commented on, when you were thinking that you wanted to start your own business, you reflected on some of your past stories, and that's how you came up with this. When did you know that you wanted to start your own business? What's the story behind that?
Well, so I got my degree. We lived in Denver for 10 years, and I got my degree. I finally finished it after my son got into school, and I felt that he could safely be on his journey. I could continue mine. So I got my degree in broadcast communications and theater. And while doing that, I became an intern at a local TV and film production company in Denver. And I just fell in love with, I'd always had a camera in my hand from the time I could remember. It was a lot more expensive then because you had film and you had to develop it. But
every picture you took,
right?
Millennials, every single picture we took, we had to develop.
I know. And even in high school, I got a little bit into video and filmmaking where I definitely didn't have the equipment I have now, but I kind of hacked my way through utilizing it in presentations for my school projects and whatnot. So I always had a fascination. So I went that direction in regards to my education. Well, when I moved out to the Northwest and we moved to Vancouver, I found that I didn't have any networking connections or anything, and it is who you know often in this industry. So the next best thing was I started to work for, I worked for several different types of companies, kind of as their marketer and office administrator, and kind of fill in the blank, that front end person that wears many hats. And often they would find out that I, was a photographer. I did know about video. And this was really when, especially Facebook and social media was just starting to really hit hard. And, if you had really nice, unique images and you had the ability and capability to produce video for that, it was setting you apart. Mm. So I kind of got to a place where I was like, why am I doing this for other people? I could be doing this for myself. And I started being asked by other, friends that own their own companies or, other companies. They're like, hey, would you do this on the side? And I was like, gosh, I could actually do this for myself. And I don't have to have a boss, and I could have some time freedom to, be with my family. And so I started my company in 2013. And I knew I was going to have to build it as I went because photography equipment and videography equipment is very expensive. And I didn't want to start my company in debt. So it wasn't actually until last September that I put my notice in to my day job and took the leap. Really, I have to thank my husband for kind of kicking me in the ass and saying, you just need to choose. You can't keep running a company and working a day job. Choose. So I chose to embrace being an entrepreneur and embrace building my own business. And I didn't want to look back on my life and say, I wish I had and not have tried. So it was the perfect storm last year, and it's just been an amazing journey since. So
congratulations on doing that. And it does take a lot of courage. I think there are a lot of people, myself, I was one of these people. It sounds like you were that person as well. And there'll be people listening who are sitting thinking, I really would love to have my own company. Mm-hmm. And there are only some who take that leap of faith.
Oh, yeah.
Forward.
And it is a leap of faith.
It is a leap of faith. And I think that some people make the assumption that taking that leap of faith means you don't do it smartly. And I like how you talked a little bit about, we don't need to go into it further, but I really wanted to highlight that you don't just jump into these things blindly. You have to plan it out, and you did do that. And obviously you got to a point where you weren't seeing that it was safe to jump, or as safe as it can ever be, right?
Yes.
And your husband did. And so there are two things that I really took away from that story that you shared. One is that we never get anywhere alone. And no one can take away the work in which your professional expertise and the talents that you have. No one can take that away from you. That is you. but we live in we live as human beings, we live in a community of that's our house. Then the community is a little bit larger. If you go to church or you belong to certain organizations, that's part of a community. We're part of many communities who help support us and give us an environment that allows us to jump safely. And so I love that, you credit your husband to as being part of that process, because I feel the same with me and my business as well. And so kudos to our, in our situations, the men in our lives, yay, husbands. And then you said also about choice. You said you had to choose. And so when your husband said to you, okay, it's time to choose, how were you feeling in that moment? Because I think this is really where that separates the people who are dreaming of their business and then doing their own business. It's right at this line. Talk
Absolutely.
a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was very scary, because really then the choosing that was choosing to rely that what I was providing was valuable. And I've struggled with that for a while. I've worked with a business coach, a couple different business coaches, and it takes a while to kind of unwind and unstick your brain to going, what I have is to offer is valuable, and I can actually make a living. I'm still in a process of that. And part of it was I actually grieved for like the month. So I gave my notice in September or end of August. And then my last day was the last day of September for the company. And it was really emotional for me, because, I built this community of people that I saw every day, and I love that. I still love them. I'm still in contact with them, but it was safe.
Yeah.
And it was secure. And I knew every 2 weeks I got a paychecks. And I knew that these people were, kind of my little subculture, sub-community. So it was a weird blend of being really excited and really scared and grieving a part of my life that I was, in essence, putting to rest, and jumping into something that it was on me. It's on me to make the right choices. Have I made all the right choices? No, but that's okay. I'm learning. And I've really viewed the end of last year and this full year as my foundational building. Even though I've owned my company and I've been, had clients and I've done stuff since 2013, this is really my foundation that I'm building to run my business in a way that is giving me time freedom, is not going to suck the life out of me, because so many business owners, they just work like a hamster in a hamster wheel and they just never get off of it. And I don't want that. If I'm going to run a business, I want it to be done smart. I want it replicatable in some regards. And I want it to be something I have a lot of choice in. So it's been an interesting journey for sure.
And I don't think the journey ever ends.
No.
And I think that's what's actually wonderful about it.
Yeah.
So, if I think at 40, was I 42? It was 42, I think, it was 42 when I decided to make that leap, and I, quit the safety of corporate. And truth be told, I really like how you were open enough and with yourself and your own feelings to say that there was a grieving process for you. There was no grieving for me. Really, it was just full of joy.
Yes.
But, creating a sustainable business model was something that I was really interested in as well. And in this day and age, I sound like my grandmother now, in this day and age, with the internet, what it is, there really are so many opportunities, not only to connect with people around the world and serve around the world from a business perspective, but there are so many tools at our disposal to create something that is sustainable. So using systems and tools to support our business. And I think that's really, really exciting as well. And that is partly why I say the journey never ends, because there's always new technology. There's always new businesses starting, and businesses are at different business cycles as well. And so therefore, I'm sure you'll be seeing the needs change over the years that may require that you adapt. And that you adapt your offerings and how you serve your clients.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about then how you like what's sort of your secret? Do you have any mindset hacks? You know, I think you commented a little bit without calling it mindset. You've obviously done some mindset work. So
Yeah.
you start and tell us what does mindset mean to you? And I'm putting you on the spot here because we've not talked about mindset before, you and I. So here you go. So a little bit of so what does mindset mean to you, and why is it important in business?
So mindset to me is really making a choice to start the day looking in a good perspective. So, and actually, with my theater background as an actor, and then on the flip side of that, I've been a director for both film and stage. You use a lot of mindsets. So to me, it's actually a practice that I have all the skills. I just have to use them. So what I do every day, for the most part, is I start every day with my hands open. And what that allows me is it allows me to release things to God and give back to him, you know, my gratitude, release the things I'm trying to hang on to that are not my control. And then it also has my hands open to receive blessing. So it's a way for me to go, okay, today's a new day. You know, maybe yesterday was not a great day. Okay, it's a new day. And part of that too is just making a choice to move forward in a way that I learn from my mistakes. I learn from my victories too. Like, what did I do that was so amazing? Okay, can I replicate that? Yes. I mean, you can't replicate all the magic, but you can replicate who you're working with. And that's one of the big things for me is that I actually work with my clients on is who is your ideal or your ideal ones, your ideal client, who is your who. When you make that decision to identify who those people are, who your tribe is, and then you align yourself with them, then the magic happens because you start working with people you want to work with and not everyone in the universe, because we can't work with everyone. We have to really identify who they are. And that's part of the mindset for me as well, is knowing that I can't work with everyone necessarily. I don't want to work with everyone. And that's really been on my journey very helpful. It's not easy. It's not that I fall down, and I don't always practice all of that every day, but I can always do it the next day.
You can always do it the next day. And I think, you know, you can't do better if you don't know better.
Absolutely.
Right? I was reading something or watching something from Oprah yesterday, and she said something that resonated. I was reminded of something that she said when you were just sharing that story. And she said, "What is the right next step?" And I think that was really powerful for me to hear, because in this situation, when you do have your own business, which is wonderful and it does give you time freedom, you can easily get into a state of overwhelm.
Yeah.
And when there's a lot of noise out there in the business world, and how do I stay in my own lane? And then, and what's the right next step are things that that certainly help me. And I like a lot of quotes and phrases and things like that sort of help to ground me and keep me on my own path. Do you have any quotes or tools or things that help to keep you sort of aligned and focused in your own path?
For me, I will say I don't really have necessarily a quote per se that is the most, unique or special to inspiring me. I love reading lots of quotes, and a lot of them are anonymous at the time, which is great. Because they're out there just sharing their words, and someone is attracted to them. For me, I am not a huge reader, but I do read because I know it's important. But I actually love listening to TED Talks, and I love listening to people sharing their story. It's that basically the tradition of, oral tradition, that we're sharing stories audibly and sometimes visually in a way that I think books are great, and I love books. Again, I'm not a huge reader, but I do try. My husband teases me all the time because he's a huge reader. He reads like hundreds of books a year. I struggle to read probably 20 or 30. That's okay.
It is. I think we all learn. I think we're all attracted to different forms of media, and I don't need to be telling you that, Miss Theatre, and all of the things that you do with video and film and photos. Yeah. That's the way that your brain is wired to like to receive.
Yes. So for me, listening to people's stories, whether it's a TED Talk, or you'll scroll through your Facebook feed, and there's just some amazing stories out there, and those are what inspire me. Those people that are willing to get up there in front of hundreds of people and be vulnerable and share their journey is so inspiring, because we've all been there. We've all fallen down, or we've all dealt with something that we felt like, oh my gosh, am I going to get through this? And then to hear other people getting through it, and you go, okay, I can get through it. Or, wow, they did that. I can do that too.
I can do that too.
And so that's kind of where I'm at with what kind of drives me.
Yeah, I love that. That's why I love my radio show, because people's stories fascinate me. To the point that I was recently in Hollywood at a conference. I just got back a couple of days ago. I still feel like I've got a bit of jet lag going on. Yes. And I was starting to almost annoy myself, because I kept asking strangers, because strangers were everywhere. So what's your story? How are you here in Hollywood? Because in Hollywood, no one's from Hollywood. No one is from there. I waited in line for the Jimmy Kimmel show to try and I didn't have a ticket, and so there's a spare line, and I got in, which was amazing. Yay. I know. I sat on Hollywood. Yay! I sat on Hollywood Boulevard for 3 hours, just crossing my fingers in hopes that that would make it in, and I did. And so there's plenty of people then around me whose stories I was hearing, and no story is the same. And that's what is so cool about it. We're all humans having a human experience, experiencing challenges, yet nothing is the same. But the power of the human spirit and the human soul, when you go through those experiences, is the same. And that's what kind of connects us to one another when we do, as you said, share so openly and vulnerably. And in this day and age of social media being what it is, which I think is phenomenal. It's allowed me to have an online business. So I'm appreciative and forever grateful for that. I think that, we're at a stage now, we're starting to see we are seeing some of the downsides associated with the fakeness, which we can put out there. And so exploring the story behind the pictures, I think is really quite fascinating. So thank you for being part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when you're working with clients, how do you get that kind of vulnerability out of them? Or do you only work with people who have these signs of willingness and appetite to open up?
Yeah, so I will say that I have found I've naturally attract, probably partially through my process. I always send out a list of questions, and I've honed those questions into a way, I think, that if someone isn't wanting to actually make that hurdle jump and actually dive down a little bit, that's kind of the first step. And then I always have kind of an introductory session before I get started. And I think at that point they'll know, oh, I have to do what? I have to get in front of them. I have to do, because that's one of the top things I am constantly telling my clients, is that at some point you have to step in front of the camera, whether I'm driving the camera or I'm training you to use the tools you have, because our phones are amazing at this point. And if you have a few tools to really improve that video quality, you can do some amazing things with your phone, and you need to be on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So that it really is, I think, through that process of questioning that I've learned that has helped me filter out to find clients that are at that precipice. They're ready to make that jump, and it is a jump. They have to leap that crevice of fear. And often it's because they just feel like what they have to say is important. They don't feel like their story is important. And the people that are brave that do it are the ones that are actually attracting the people they want to work with, because they're sharing who they are, and they're setting themselves apart because they are giving a bit of themselves, and people want to know that. That's why we have TED Talks. That's why we have things like your podcast, because people love stories. They love to hear, pull the curtain and see behind the scenes a little bit as to what has made a business or an organization what they are. And it's those stories, I think, that perpetuate the interest, and then make those people potentially clients or supporters or fans, whatever the organization or company needs. That's what you can develop through storytelling.
So when did this start? Because I don't, if I recall being a kid, and maybe I'm just not remembering, I'm remembering through the lens of a young child. So perhaps, that filter on my recollection is influencing things here. But I don't remember storytelling being such a big part of business before to get clients. How has that evolved? And tell me a little bit more. If someone's listening right now who has a business, who's listening but not kind of sold on the idea of storytelling, tell us a little bit about the evolution and why now it's so important when it may not have been so much before.
I think I think if you go back to, 50s, 60s, 70s, the media was so new anyways. But
Right.
Often people were relating to businesses that were in their hometown. So we didn't have the internet. You didn't have, the worldwide, the web. You had your town, and your town may have been a little bit larger, but typically in your neighborhood or your community, you knew, the grocery store owner, or you knew the postman, or you knew people. There was
Right. A human connection.
Yeah, there was relationships. And I think as our technology grew, because even in the 80s, in the town that I grew up, 80s and 90s that I grew up in, you knew people. You did business locally because there really wasn't much of a way to do it past that. So
Right.
I think in marketing, there was a lot of fun, polished, plastic, goofy, or, the classic icons like Tony the Tiger or whatever.
Hey, I like Tony the Tiger. Don't
I do too. I do too. Jolly Green Giant. You had these fun, quirky things that we, were attracted to because they were imaginary. I mean, they had their own stories as it is. But I think when storytelling became really important as a business, in business or business owners, is because we've really have lost connection between internet, and then that internet crossing over into our digital tools, especially our phone. I mean, we have so much coming at us that is can be so distracting. But I think what stops most of us in our tracks is when someone is being honest or candid or very vulnerable, or, it's even could be just really quirky personality. That's what stops and attracts us, because it's like, oh, wow, someone's being human.
Right.
I can connect.
Right.
So I think for business owners, it's important to have that aspect of a human connection.
It sounds so simple and obvious when you say it.
Yeah. doesn't.
Right, but sometimes the obvious gets disguised by the noise and pretty things and shiny objects. So I guess consumer habits haven't really changed insofar as we want to buy from someone. I'm saying someone or an organization that we like and trust, and that can only be established through an actual connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
So in this journey of business, or even in life before you started your business, what's the biggest obstacle that you have been faced with and overcome?
I think the biggest obstacle for me, especially in my industry of photography and even more so in videography, is being a woman. A lot of photography, most business photographers in the industry are men. Most women photographers, deal with babies and children.
Pretty
And
things.
I can do that, but I chose a different path, and especially when you get into film and videography, it is a man's world still, and it is something that I still find, and even the people that I do projects with, that I'm on set with, I'm friends with them, but I know I'm the odd one out because I'm the only woman.
Yeah.
But the people that I do work with, I think they value me in a sense because I usually can connect with people on the other side of the camera in a different way. And I've also been told by a lot of my clients that they prefer working with me because I am a woman, because they really appreciate the way I approach things in a different dynamic. And part of that, I think, is just come from my experience as in theater as a director, because I've been on both sides of the coin as an actor and a director, and I've fashioned my skills in a way that I want to be talked to. And I think that's been the biggest hurdle for me. And so what I've been trying really hard to do is establish a lot of strong connections with other strong female photographers, and establish connections with other women who want to cross over into filmmaking and video, so that we can kind of create this little tribe that, we can do this, even though it's still a man's world in that regard. So it's kind of funny. We've come a long way, but we haven't.
It's very interesting, and I think that there are many industries that would echo that challenge. I appreciate as well what you said, that what you're doing in an attempt to mitigate that challenge, right? In terms of connecting with others in the industry to support one another and help each other rise.
Yeah.
I really do believe that empowered women empower women. And that it's, that I feel it as well as that my sort of personal responsibility. I feel like I've taken that on me to help women of all ages, show them that it's never too late to start stepping
Absolutely.
up and using your voice. I'm a royalist. I watched the royal wedding in full garb. I got all dressed up. The one that was in the summer. Harry and Meghan and Meghan Markle, and I'm quite a Meghan fan, and I've watched quite a lot of her interviews. And there was one interview in particular where she said, "Women don't need to find their voice; they already have a voice.
Yes.
They need to be given the permission to use it."
Mm-hmm.
And that I thought was really quite interesting as well. They need to be given the permission to use it. And so I say permission. I don't think she actually used the word permission. Now they're I'm paraphrasing. It was a bit stronger of a term that she used. And I just thought that alone was really, really, really quite powerful. Mm-hmm. And yet when I go into the women's washrooms and things are written all over the walls about other women, it's the women doing that. Men aren't coming in the middle of the night writing awful things about women on the bathroom stalls.
No.
And so until I feel like there are many things that we need to do as a gender, both together as a unit, as well as how we connect with men in business to help us all rise. And that's, we have come a long way, like you said, and we have so much further to go.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to me, in my experience so far, it really is fear, you know, that, like you said, having permission. It's a fear. We're not giving ourselves permission.
Yes.
And it's a mindset. And then I also think that competitiveness, you know, the women that are sneaking into the bathroom and writing horrible things, or you know, making biting comments, you know, in you know, events, or, you know, whatever the scenario. I think it really just comes from insecurity, and I've experienced that myself in my own community with kind of getting the cold shoulder, or getting, you know, some little catty stuff going on. And I'm at a space where I go, gosh, I feel really sorry for you, because you're so insecure that you have to lash out, because I feel like I'm one of the more collaborative, embracing people of, you know, in my community. I really try and strive to not be judgmental, and give people, my husband always says I give people way too many chances. And to me, that's because I think that really deep down, we all are good. It's just, you know, I love collaboration, and it's like, why not collaborate? Why not come together and be stronger together? Because by ourselves, we're just scared.
Yeah, it's so true. I know you said you're not a massive fan of books, but I'm reading this book right now. I'm almost finished it. I'm sure I know she's the author of the book has done a lot of radio shows. And I'm not sure if she has a TED Talk. Anyway, she's going to be on my radio show in November. Her name is Joanne Lipman, and she wrote the book. I've got it here beside me. It's called That's What She Said, What Men Need to Know and Women Need to Tell Them About Working Together. And it was just published in 2018. And the reason I'm giving it a plug right now is because it is one of 2 books that I've ever read. I'm sure there are more, but it's one of 2 books that I've ever read where I feel like feminist is not a swear word. And yeah, and that it's really about how do we actually start having conversations together with men. So how do the 2 genders actually come together to hear one another as it's intended and help one another rise? That it's not when men don't lose, when women rise. And I feel like that's a difficult thing if we put ourselves in, you know, in the man's shoes. I think that could be very threatening.
Yeah.
And so if we are looking at it from that perspective, why wouldn't they resist?
That's very true.
Why wouldn't they resist?
Very true.
So yeah, I think that, yeah. What are your thoughts on that kind of thing?
I really do think that it comes down to when men and women are working together, there is a lot of fear when there's a lot of resistance, because, you know, like you said, it's why wouldn't they resist? Because there is a threat. They're not seeing beyond the scope of, you know, what is the benefit of coming together and collaborating? Yes. And I think men and women, we have different roles. We have different things that we bring to the table. Men, I think, sometimes are, you know, I know I look to my husband sometimes to help me make decisions because he's not as emotional or not as attached. And that's a good thing sometimes, because when we're in a space where emotions are just flooded and our, you know, softer side of us is not sure what to do with a situation, sometimes that direct, you know, lack of, I don't want to say lack of emotion, because that's not what it is, but that ability to come in and say, no, this is what needs to happen, is amazing, because we can't be there. But I think that can flip around too. I think there's just different dynamics of personalities that can really complement each other, whether it's men or women or two women working together, or, it's just being, I think, human together and understanding that collaboration is not
collaboration wins, I think.
Yeah, it's not a threat. It's how can we help each other grow and rise and be better humans. I met recently with another gal locally that really does exactly what I do. Yeah. Exactly what I do. And it's funny, I got introduced to her and she's like, "Oh, I heard a lot about you and I so want to meet with you." And it was just so refreshing because you either get that, especially if you're meeting with someone that does exactly what you do, you either get that bite of, "Oh, you're my competition.
Yes.
How can I beat you?" Or you get the invitation to collaborate. And so I was really, happy to have that invitation to collaborate.
And what are the benefits of that? Why would one choose that as opposed to choosing to stay closed?
Because really, we all bring something different to the table. It's like you said earlier, no story is the same. We all have our own unique perspectives. We all have our own unique journey and story and things that we bring to the table. So for me to collaborate with someone doing exactly what I do, they have a different lens they're looking through. And they may see something that I don't see. Or they may be able to work with someone in a different way that is better for that client than them working with me. And that's really, I think, important to me, is that, not all money is good money, so to speak, or not all clients are good clients. Because if it's not a beneficial relationship, you're not truly helping. And so to have the ability to look a little more objectively at things and say, "You know what, this relationship right now is not a good one. I'm going to actually have you work with this person because I feel like that's a better fit and I think they can better meet your needs."
It's service-based, right? You're here, and it's the same as me. We offer a completely different service. I'm a coach. We offer a different service, but if I can't serve someone and know someone who can, what a great service I'm giving to that person to be able to have that connection with another person in the same field.
Yeah,
that can support them more, and it works both ways then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So that connection that you've made may have that same experience at some point, and then refer someone to you. Imagine even the perspective of the client that you pass over.
Mm-hmm.
They're in a space where you may not have finished the work for them, but yet they are going to think very highly of you, and who knows the referrals that even may come from that.
Oh, absolutely.
So I very much have an abundant mindset. There is a lot of work out there. There's a lot of people who need support. And as an individual company, you cannot support everyone. So I think connection over competition wins every time. It wins every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we shouldn't want to work with everyone. We need to work with people that just make our hearts sing and that are a good match on both sides. So, and at least that's my perspective. So.
It's mine as well, and it's a scary one. So we're kind of going back to maybe the beginning of your entrepreneurship journey in terms of getting very niche. I know that I was scared of doing that myself because I thought, oh my gosh, if I go too niche, then there aren't enough people out there that I can support. Sure. Whereas, becoming known for the person who helps women decide, do I stay or do I go in my marriage? I become known for that, and so it's a lot easier for people to connect with me and find me when I know that that's the case.
Oh, sure.
How did you, but it was scary. It was scary making that. So tell me how you kind of decided and chose that, and who is it? Do you have a really specific kind of business, whether it's size, whether it's attributes, like, how did you get to that, and who is your little niche? Who is your niche?
So I right now have two niches that I really have it's organically revealed itself. It has nothing to do with company size necessarily, although I think I'm more geared for like the small to medium sized business, probably because I'm coming from that perspective. But really my two niches are, one is the alternative health and wellness. And I believe that comes out of the fact that that's something that I highly value. It's something that I grew up with when it wasn't popular.
Yes. Me too.
Right. And it's something that I relate to. So I think part of that is that I already understand something that a lot of other people may not get. So they may be going to, if they met with me and they met with another videographer or photographer, it's very possible that the other photographer may just not really get their perspective and their passion. And that's something that I'm beating the drum with them. The other would be those that are a little bit more creatively minded. So that's probably partially because I'm in the theater community. I've been seen and kind of associated with that. So out of that, my connections are people that are a little bit more in creative industries, or at least creatively minded. And I think part of that might be also my process when I do talk with people, that they have to be in that sense of letting go of something that's really stale, and be willing to tell their story in a way that will be attractive. So I've worked with a lot of artists. One of my top clients here locally, she's a hair and makeup artist that works with fashion and in the fashion industry, and she's kind of worldwide known for some of her special techniques. And she's just amazing because she doesn't necessarily know the concept per se. She has her story, and then we work together to tell that story creatively so that it's matching her brand. And so that's probably my two niches. So, it definitely does knock out, certain industries, or, knock out maybe certain company sizes, but right now I'm okay with that, because those people are at a space where they're ready and they're hungry to tell their story, and they value telling their story. So,
well, and then alternative health and wellness, let's just go on that theme for a second. Then those organizations looking for someone to create the kind of work, the content that you create, they'll go to someone who is an expert in that area. Mm-hmm. And so you will stand out as someone who has a focus on that area. So I think it just serves to, support your brand. And you said something that made me think that, you find your purpose in your passion. And so when you talked about both of those things are passions of yours outside of the business that you own.
Yeah.
And so I think for those listening right now who are sort of wondering, I'd love to have my own business too. That certainly was me when I was in my early 20s. I really, really wanted to have my own business, but I had no idea where. And I had a lot of years of life experience that I had to gain, which I now reflect on and realize that was part of some of my pain has become my purpose, but my passion is my purpose as well. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think is so cool about just life in general, and the journey that we're all on, and that we are now on as entrepreneurs, that it doesn't end, and finding the joy in the journey is exciting to embrace, which sounds like you are as well.
Absolutely.
So we're coming to the close of the show, and I want to learn a little bit more about, someone's listening right now with a business and wondering, well, how do I know if it's time? Why would I reach out to Amanda? What could that look like? Tell us a little bit. If someone's you've piqued someone's curiosity who's listening, mm-hmm. Why would they reach out to you? What stage are they at? And how can they reach you?
Okay. So, someone would reach out to me because they are at that precipice. So if mentally they go, I I really have that passion, I have that drive, and I just have this little crack that I know I need to jump over, but I'm not sure how to jump over that. I don't know if I have the courage, or I don't know if I just, they're mentally going through all of the pros and cons. That's a really good space for someone to come and work with me, because my brand clarity process helps to unwind that and boost your confidence so that you can leap and actually start to clarify your brand. Part of that is identifying those ideal niches and those ideal clients, because that helps build confidence. Right. Someone can reach out to me. Best way would either be through either my Facebook page, so it's facebook.com/silverkeysmedia, or you can check out my website. So it's just silverkeysmedia.com, and I have all of my services listed there. Those are probably the two best ways that people can reach me, or Amanda@silverkeysmedia.com. Feel free, you can email me and we can start a conversation that way. If someone's not quite sure and they still want to kind of check things out, they know that they need to start maybe interacting or building themselves in a visual way, I do actually have a free community group on Facebook called the Visual Vibe Tribe. So I think you can search that and ask to become a member. It's a closed group, partially just because I just don't want it free flowing, right? And weird trolls or something to get in there. So if you want to search that, but you also could go to my Facebook page and find that in the groups. Check that out. What that is a monthly, I have a theme. I have questions that I ask. I share my lives in there, as well as articles to really help basically create a community of those that want and know they need to visually be telling their story, but don't necessarily know how. So I want to build a community that we can start working together to help each other do that.
Fantastic. It speaks to one of your values of collaboration and supporting others, right? Absolutely. You sell a service, we all do, but it really is about creating that connection first, establishing that relationship, and those then who need further support can engage you, and otherwise it's still providing that care, concern, and support for others. I have to say we are now at the top of the hour. This has been an amazing coffee chat. I've been drinking coffee anyway as we've been chatting. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Amanda, for your time, for sharing some of your stories and what it is that you do in this world.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing, and I've enjoyed listening to your current, your past podcasts, and I'm so excited to kind of be part of your community now.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. I'm happy to be part of yours. And to those who may not have heard, the Visual Vibe Tribe on Facebook is the way to get in touch with Amanda if you're dipping your toes in. And certainly please contact her through her website or other means if you wish to engage in some work. I know I'm hopping over to the Visual Vibe Tribe after this call. So thank you for that, Amanda.
Absolutely.
So now we're at the top of the hour. Like I said, I would like to thank all of you, my loyal listeners, and remind you that information about my guests and the live show can be found on louisehreed.com. As always, lots of love and shout out to my producer at Contact Talk Radio, Cameron Steele. Thanks for all that you do. And then finally, I am here to shine the spotlight on and showcase amazing people who are just making a difference in this world. And I would like, as I always do at this time, encourage you all to be brave, be bold, and be happy. So until next week, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, have an awesome week, and we will see you again.
Okay, you're clear.
Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
So,
what
did you think?
You guys can continue talking.
Okay.